Close your eyes for a second and picture a butterfly. You know exactly what you see. Delicate wings catching the light, a gentle drift from flower to flower. Maybe a garden, maybe a meadow, something your grandmother had on a decorative plate in her kitchen. Butterflies are the universal symbol of fragile beauty. They are on baby shower invitations. They are the thing people release at weddings. They are, in the popular imagination, about as dangerous and desperate as a floating soap bubble. Now, open your eyes, because I need to take that image and absolutely destroy it. Deep in the western Amazon, one of the most biodiverse and brutally competitive ecosystems on the planet, there is a scene playing out right now that no nature documentary has prepared you for. Along the muddy banks of slow brown rivers, enormous reptiles are hauling themselves out of the water to bask in the jungle sun. Giant river turtles the size of serving platters, spectacled caimans with armored hides and jaws that can crush bone, and swarming their faces, crawling across their scales, hovering inches from their eyes, landing in shimmering clouds of orange and yellow, are butterflies. Dozens of them, sometimes hundreds. They are not attacking, they are not confused, they are not lost. They are drinking. And what they are drinking and why they are drinking it is one of the most unsettling, fascinating, and darkly brilliant survival stories in the entire animal kingdom: the biological crisis. To understand what is happening on that riverbank, you have to understand something about the Amazon that most people never learn. The Amazon rainforest looks from the outside like the most abundant place on Earth. And in terms of life, in terms of sheer biological density and variety, it absolutely is. But abundance of life does not mean abundance of everything those lives need. The western Amazon basin is hiding a critical, invisible flaw. It is almost completely starved of sodium. Salt, the most basic mineral on Earth, the thing you shake onto your food without thinking about it. In this part of the world, it is genuinely, desperately scarce, and the reason comes down to pure geography. The Atlantic Ocean, the closest major saltwater source, is thousands of miles to the east. Normally, ocean winds carry microscopic salt particles inland, depositing them slowly across the land. But the western Amazon has a problem. The Andes Mountains run like a massive wall along the entire western edge of the continent, blocking any salt-bearing winds from the Pacific. And the rain, the relentless tropical downpour that makes the Amazon what it is, takes whatever trace minerals do exist in the soil and flushes them straight into the rivers and out to sea. Decades of rainfall, thousands of miles from the nearest coast, a mountain range cutting off the other direction entirely. The result is a landscape that is breathtaking in its life and almost completely mineral dead in its soil. Now here is why that matters for our butterfly. Sodium is not optional for living things. It is not a nice to have. For insects especially, sodium is fundamental to basic biological function. Their nervous systems run on sodium ion channels. Without it, nerve signals don't fire correctly. Their muscles require sodium to contract. Their reproductive systems needed to produce viable eggs. And in a place where the soil and the plants that grow from it are sodium depleted, getting enough salt to survive becomes the central obsession of an enormous number of species. In the western Amazon, salt is worth more than gold. And these butterflies are flat broke. So, what do you do when you are a butterfly and you are sodium starved in one of the most competitive environments on the planet? You get creative and you get aggressive. Butterflies across the tropics engage in a behavior called mud puddling, landing on wet soil, animal droppings, rotting carcasses, or patches of dried sweat to extract whatever trace minerals they can find. You've probably seen photos of butterflies clustered on a muddy trail or gathered around a dead animal and thought it looked strange. That is exactly what they are doing. Desperate mineral extraction from whatever source is available. But mud puddling has a ceiling. When the soil itself is mineral poor, the puddles don't yield much. Rotting organic matter gives you some, but not enough. Dung gives you a little more, but again, in an environment this stripped of sodium, you can spend all day mud puddling and still come up short. So some species in the Western Amazon took things further, much further. They identified the single highest concentration sodium source available in their environment. Not in the soil, not in the plants, not in the river water, in the eyes of the largest reptiles in the jungle. Here is why. When a yellow-spotted river turtle or a spectacled caiman hauls itself out of the water to bask, which they do regularly for thermoregulation, their eyes are suddenly exposed to open air and direct sun for the first time in hours. Eyes need to stay moist to function, so the reptile's tear ducts kick in and begin producing tears to keep the eye surface lubricated and protected from drying out in the heat. Those tears are not plain water. They are a saline solution, sodium-rich, concentrated, and produced in a steady, reliable stream for as long as the reptile was sitting in the sun. To a sodium-starved butterfly in the Western Amazon, a basking caiman's eye is not a terrifying predator. It is a vending machine.
The core science. The scientific term for what happens next is lachryphagy. It comes from the Latin lacrima, meaning tear, and the Greek phagein, meaning to eat. Tear eating, or in this case, tear drinking. And the mechanics of it are exactly as invasive as they sound. The butterfly, most commonly species like the Julia butterfly or various sulfur butterflies, though multiple species across the tropics engage in this behavior, approaches the reptile's face and lands. Sometimes on the scales directly around the eye socket, sometimes on the eyelid itself. It then unrolls its proboscis, the long, flexible feeding tube coiled under its head that it normally uses to drink flower nectar, and inserts it directly into the corner of the reptile's eye. And it drinks. It siphons the tears directly from the surface of the eyeball, slowly working the proboscis around the tear duct opening to maximize flow, sometimes for minutes at a time. When one butterfly finishes and flies off, another lands and takes its place. In high-density swarms, a single basking turtle can have a dozen butterflies working its face simultaneously, each one methodically extracting tears while the reptile sits there blinking in the sun. Now, I know what you were thinking. Why doesn't the crocodile just eat them? It's a completely fair question, and the answer is almost funnier than the behavior itself. It mostly can't. A spectacled caiman has an extraordinarily powerful jaw, one of the strongest bite forces of any animal its size on Earth. But its front legs are short, and its claws are not designed for delicate swatting, and its neck mobility is limited by its own armored bulk. It can lunge, snap, and roll. What it cannot do effectively is brush a cloud of small insects off its own face with any precision. So it blinks, it shifts, it moves its head, and the butterflies just relocate 2 inches and go right back to work. The caiman tolerates it not out of some cooperative spirit, but because the metabolic cost of the tears is trivial compared to the energy required to do anything meaningful about it. The butterflies are taking something the reptile produces in surplus anyway. It is mildly parasitic. The butterflies benefit, the reptile loses essentially nothing. But calling it a partnership would be too generous. It is closer to a mugging that the victim has decided isn't worth the paperwork. The dark biology. Now, here is where this story takes its final, genuinely bizarre turn. Pay attention, because this detail reframes everything we just talked about. It is not all butterflies doing this. Across virtually every species documented engaging in lachryphagy in the Amazon, the tear drinkers are almost exclusively male. The females are largely absent from the basking sites. They are not the ones mobbing the turtles. They are not the ones sticking their proboscises into the eyes of caimans. Why? Because the males aren't just drinking sodium for themselves, they're stockpiling it. When a male butterfly mates with a female, he doesn't just pass genetic material, he passes a physical package called a spermatophore, a protein-rich bundle that contains sperm, nutrients, and critically, the sodium he has been accumulating for weeks of tear drinking and mud puddling. It is called a nuptial gift, and the female uses the sodium in that package directly to develop her eggs, to give her larvae the mineral foundation they need to survive in a sodium-starved environment. The male butterflies are drinking crocodile tears so they can afford to have children. They are not being reckless, they are not being weird, they are executing a precise biological calculation. In an environment where sodium is the limiting factor for reproduction, the male who collects the most sodium passes on the most offspring. So every minute spent hovering over a caiman's eye socket is an investment in the next generation. It is arguably one of the most dedicated examples of paternal resource gathering in the insect world, executed in the most terrifying setting imaginable. That is what the Amazon does. It takes delicate things and turns them ruthless. It takes beautiful things and makes them desperate. The butterfly did not choose to drink the tears of armored predators. It was pushed there, inch by inch, by an environment that stripped away every easier option first. And when there was nothing left, no safe soil, no easy puddle, no gentle source, it looked at a 5-foot caiman sitting in the sun and thought, I can work with this. That is not fragility. That is the sharpest edge survival has ever worn. If you think a butterfly drinking crocodile tears to pay child support is a wild adaptation, wait until you hear how a seabird manages to sleep while flying over the open ocean for 2 straight months without ever landing. I break it all down right here.